strong coordination. And strong coordination requires good leadership. And good leadership is what the next session is about. Because how do you set standards and good practice and best practice and good examples in terms of your leadership model? How do people know what is the right thing to do in this new situation? Especially that applies to the next generation of leaders. And by the way, who is actually doing this teaching, if you like, this example showing in the travel sector? That's what this next session is about, with a very distinguished panel, and that includes the moderator, who I'd like to invite on stage, Maribel Rodriguez, Senior Vice President, World Travel and Tourism Council. Please come up. Hiya, how you doing?
Buen día, boa tarde, good afternoon, buenos días, buenas tardes. So I'm going to introduce my panelists so they can join me on stage. So I'm gonna ask, please, His Excellency Nayef Al-Fayed, Minister of Tourism of Antiquities of Jordan. Thank you very much for joining us today. Please, Manuel Alejandro Cardenete, Deputy Minister for the Tourism Andalusia. Thank you. We have Stefan Hartman, Head of Department, European Tourism Futures Institute, virtually. Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Inzerillo, the CEO of Diriyah Gate Development Authority from Saudi Arabia. Welcome. Our ambassador at WTTC and distinguished UNGSDS advocacy alumni, Madame Do. How are you? And yes, well, we are pretty much all of us all together. Thank you very much. We are here today to talk about governance. Things have been changing over the last few months, as you all know, and there is nothing that we are going to be reinventing today here. We all know the difficulties we went through, the crisis. We were lacking for a unique voice. We tried to do our best, public sector, private sector as well. We at WTTC, as you all know, we have been trying to coordinate. We created safe travel stamps, international protocols, and we have been, calling for governments to get aligned. But it's true that it's very difficult. Some companies did their own thing, but governments as well, they did their own things. It was very difficult to combine between, health and then tourism. Very complicated, but at the same time, very challenging. But we have been really missing, I don't say leadership because we have a lot of leaders, but coordination and a unique voice. That has been really, really something that we have missed. And we have found out something very important, is that we need new rules, new governance rules, because we are not in the same place as we were in the past. Yesterday in the session that some ministers were here, we learned some things, and I wanted to share with you some takeaways, which I think was interesting, because it's not always everything is negative. It has to be some positives. We had Minister Lemoine. He was talking about, that Europe, for the first time, they have this certificate in record time of 6 months. For the private sector, is a lot of time, but we understand the difficulties. And as well, how transversal is tourism, and how now everyone, understood how important our beautiful sector is. Spain was talking about cooperation. It's very important cooperation at every level. And then Jamaica, Greece, and Egypt, they were talking about inequality, the need of leadership, and that no one should be left behind. So within this context and understanding how important is our industry, we need to talk about these new rules. And for that, I'd like to give the floor to His Excellency to talk about what are the measures that your government has been doing to relaunch tourism compared to what it was done previously.
Well, good afternoon to you all, and it's always a pleasure to be meeting with the decision makers of the tourism industry, not only government, but also private sector, NGOs, international organizations, and this is where we all come together to find out what we have to do to the future of our industry. It's been an exciting 2 days, yesterday and today. We had a lot of comments, we had a lot of ideas, we heard a lot of similar thoughts, which is good. That means we all think alike, but unfortunately we lack coordination. And that's no difference, by the way, within the governments itself, within the countries itself. Usually we talk, and when there is crisis, people come together. People start thinking to find solutions. And it is an opportunity for us to come up with solutions, not only for the current crisis, but also for future issues. And I think this is an opportunity for us here in this conference, that we sit and talk about what we have faced, what we need to do, but also to think for the future. COVID is going to be over. One day or another, it's going to be over. Maybe not in 2 months, 3 months, but soon it will be over. And then we have to think about the future. It was interesting to hear our colleagues in the previous session talking about the importance of sustainability. And sustainability, the UN SDGs has indicated the importance of connecting all the different elements of tourism and other industries with sustainability. But I am challenged, and I'm sure a lot of us are challenged when we want to come and define sustainability. It is still something that I will interpret in one way, another one will interpret it in another way. And I think it's an opportunity for us in the tourism industry to work on that. Coming back to my country and what Jordan had to do, we were faced with this challenge as everyone else. We didn't know what to do at the beginning. Jordan came and said, we're going to do a total lockdown of the country, which means that we're not going to allow anyone coming in or anyone going out. And we thought this was the best decision. Even the rest of the world thought this is the best decision that Jordan has done. And we thought that this is going to be short, it's going to be for a while, and then once everything is in place, once we get the vaccines, we should go back. And we couldn't continue with that because the economy was suffering. And once the economy is suffering, you have two choices. You have the choice of keeping closed, the borders closed, and have your people suffer, or you have to start facing reality. And I think there where we starting opening up, although we had total lockdown, when we start opening with small number, people started coming in, the virus started spreading, so we faced that, okay, we have to go on a different scale of operating with preserving the health care of the people. So we had to lift the capacity of our hospitals to be able to deal with that, waited for the vaccine to come in, tried to put the protocols in place for the people to start dealing with the issue. And I think one of the industries that took lead in that was the tourism industry. Because most of us have to go out to a restaurant, have to go out to a hotel, and people have to come in. So we said, okay, let's coordinate with the international community, see what are best practices, best protocols that are there. So we put that in place. We then started having the vaccines coming into the country. We were faced with another challenge. Most of the people who are working in the industry are youth, which means if they're going to be waiting for their turn to come, it might be only just last month. So we had to take another decision, say, let's take a decision, give priority for youth within or for the industry as a whole. So by April, we were fully vaccinated with our industry. And the other thing is, how are we going to maintain and sustain those who we have invested in for many years, especially in the tourism industry? We were not worried about the big corporations because they were able to manage with their banks, they were managing their employees, and they started suffering. But we were worried about the small entities, women, youth who have relied heavily on tourism, who have invested all what they have in tourism, and all of a sudden their revenues were stopped. So the government had to interfere, and we had to make sure that we maintain the big investment that we have done over the many years in the tourism industry. So the government came in and subsidized the salaries of the employees within the industry. So at the beginning it was 50% was covered by the government, 20% by the corporation, and 25% by the corporation, and 25% was by the employee himself. So he was getting 75% of his wages, at least, so that we can make sure that they continue. And I think all these measures were helpful. But were they enough? They were not enough, because we needed to see tourism coming back. The solution was for us to see tourism coming back. So we had to coordinate with all different stakeholders globally, telling them, listen, we're doing our best, we're doing what we have to do, but also we have to coordinate and have some kind of alignment between all of us, so that when a traveler comes to my country, he feels safe, and the people of Jordan feel safe. And the same thing, once he leaves, goes back to his country, or someone from Jordan travels to another country. But we cannot treat people differently. We cannot treat countries differently. And we had to go and deal with the traffic light system, which was put in place, and understand that system. It took us a while. I mean, looking at it, say, okay, it doesn't make sense somehow. Considering me on the red as red destination, while I'm taking all the measurements that are needed, and actually I'm not red. So convincing others that your destination is place. I think it was an excellent learning experience to all of us. No one had an idea what the solution is. No one had the idea what the best answer is. But I think when we all sat down together in many places, and this is one of the important places of lessons learned throughout. This is where leadership comes in. This is where we don't just say, this other recommendation. We take these recommendations, we take them, and we go and fight in our countries, fight with the different organizations to make sure that they are in place. We fight with the private sector, convince them that they also have to start implementing these new rules and regulations. Because once they are in place, I think we can move quicker than what we are moving today, and at the same time having a good balance between health and safety, and making up for what we have lost in the previous years.
Thank you. What is the situation right now in your country when it comes to vaccination? Can I travel there?
You are most welcome to travel there. And I can tell you something, you're going to be feeling more safer than what you think or you hear in the media. This is the problem. On the ground, it is totally different. When, as I told you, most important, we have vaccinated all our tourism sector. One person who works in a restaurant deals between 100 to 150 in the day. So if he's safe and he goes around, you are safe. Yeah. The same thing goes with the hotel or the industry. At the same time, we have made sure that the protocols that are in place are in a way protecting workers and the people. The vaccine rollout. But again, I want to talk about vaccine rollouts. It's not fair. You know, for us, we were maybe lucky enough. We worked hard enough. We allocated the funds, which we took from something more important, and we said, no, there's no longer. This is the priority. We have to allocate them to the vaccine. But other countries are not as lucky as we are. And I know we are not as lucky as the other countries who have done much more. But this is where we all have to come together and say it has to be a global initiative. It's not only those who are lucky, I just want to keep using the word lucky, are able to reach 70 or 80 or so percent of their population vaccinated and leave the rest of the world. Once we look as a global citizen, looking at the whole world as one entity, I think we will move much faster and we will benefit much more. So I think this is extremely important for us. But for going back to Jordan, we have exceeded 40% of our population that has been vaccinated, and we are still moving with the vaccine rollout as we speak. Again, we were waiting for our allotment to come and arrive, so we're going according to what we have, and we are considered luckier than others.
Possibility, and there is still a lot of imbalance when it comes to vaccination. Manuel, Alejandro, so Andalusia is one of the top European leading destinations. It's a mature region, and of course you are facing new challenge because you have to challenge the situation that is going on now, plus how you are going to be embracing sustainability. What is Andalusia doing in that sense?
Okay, thank you, Maribel. Thank you so much for this invitation. I am very, very happy to be here because I can see your faces here, not only using our video camera, so something is changing. Definitely something is changing. So in my region, we developed one strategy with three directions. First of all, March 2020, the world was stopped. Our lives were stopped. If you remember in 2009, with the financial crisis, there were two sectors, economic sector, because of the crisis were the worst sector after this crisis, financial sector and construction sector. In the pandemic crisis, tourism has been the worst sector because tourism needs mobility. Without mobility, we haven't got tourism. So the first strategy in our region was a very short run to help our companies. How? Giving liquidity to try to pay everything because they hadn't got tourists, and paying from the government the social security taxes and the salaries because people were at home. In the medium run, we started to help the restart of the sector. First of all, Andalusia was the first region in Spain, one of the first in Europe, having one certificate for COVID with some rules, plus a very hard and strong campaign of vaccination. Now in Andalusia, we have approximately 85% of the population with the full protocol. And we included one free insurance for foreign tourists to come our region. Therefore, if any foreign tourist had any problem in our region, everything was going to be covered. I mean, hospital, flight to come back to the country, etc. And we started to put several subsidies for the different subsectors. Approximately, we put on the floor more than 100 million euros for the different subsectors, travel agents, guides, hotels, etc. And the third pillar of our strategy has been a long run strategy. So short run, middle run, and long run. 2 weeks ago, we approved in our government the strategic plan for tourism, so-called in Spanish acronym META, Marco Estratégico para el Turismo Andaluz, a strategic plan for tourism in Andalusia, 2021-2027. Later, I can explain a little bit about this. And in this plan, we include everything that we think that we must include in this. Anyway, some of our policies have been some good results. If in 2019 we received 32.5 million of tourists, last year we received approximately 13. This year we are hoping to receive 21 million of tourists. 5 characteristics, new characteristics. First of all, more people for our country, national tourists. Second point, we have increased our portfolio for foreign tourists. We had a very high level dependence of UK, and we have included new countries, Nordic countries. The third pillar, the third variable, we have increased our supply. We are increasing not only our supply in the coast, Malaga, Marbella, Cádiz, Huelva, we have included rural areas, inside areas, Malaga North, Seville North, Huelva North, with spectacular data, historical data. The fourth point, we have not the last result, the last figures, but we have some proxy variables that we have increased the revenues per average revenues of the different tourists. And finally, we are observing that we are going to reduce our seasonality during this year. So right now, in our restart, we are restarting in a different way because we were so close to have problem talking about our tourism. And our line, our roadmap is to avoid. We don't want to have, again, 32.5 million of tourists. We want to be the number of tourists that we need, higher level of these tourists, and avoiding any seasonality. So this is more or less our roadmap that we can speak later.
Very interesting. I'm sure some people would be like very jealous because you are kind of like sort of where you were before, which is great. We will talk about destination stewardship later. We have here a couple of experts in the matter. Now, let me thank you for your intervention. Let me move to Jory Inzerillo, the CEO of the Diriyah Gate Development Authority. He is there with us in Saudi Arabia. Jory, you have an esteemed career internationally, and now you are yourself in the pinnacle of your career in the giga project of from the United Kingdom of Diriyah Gate Development Authority. In this crisis, there has been not a better time or opportunity for leadership to rise above. So in your mind, who stepped up and how KCA has been involved as a leader, international voice throughout this crisis?
Well, thank you very much, Maribel, and I'm very delighted to be with you, your excellencies, and such a distinguished panel. We are extremely blessed in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, especially on the subject of leadership, because very early on, as early as April, when the pandemic hit, the custodian of the two holy mosques, His Majesty King Salman, went on television and said that the COVID is not a Saudi problem. It's a human problem. So whether people were in the kingdom legally or illegally, and most were here legally, didn't matter. We covered everybody's COVID testing. We covered everybody's hospitalizations. And this is in a year when Saudi Arabia was the presidency of the G20. So His Majesty's example set an example for the other participants, the other G20 heads of state, who replicated a lot of the protocols in terms of empathy and making sure vaccines were available in their countries and for countries that couldn't afford the vaccines. So that's one way. And I'd like to put some praise to you and all of our colleagues and friends at WTTC, for the UN WTO, and for all the ministers of tourism, especially our beloved His Excellency Fayez from Jordan, who's done an amazing job there, because part of the G20 for the first time in the history of the G20 was the T20, where all the tourism ministers got together to address and put together coordination protocols for certificates, and when this would clear, that everybody could travel without being hassled one to the other. Now, we got a long way to go. It's got to be a lot better. But to answer your question directly, in our Giga project, His Excellency Ahmed Al-Khatib, our Minister of Tourism, is daily in touch with his counterparts all over the world, daily in touch with WTTC, UNWTO, and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, even post G20 presidency, feels that it has a global obligation not only to protect our society and our wonderful people and the GCC, but to make sure that there's a very united effort between the tourism governmental agencies, the ministries of tourism, the NGOs, and certainly the leadership. So we're extremely fortunate that we have such strong leadership here with the King, an amazing Crown Prince, a great Ministry of Tourism, great Ministry of Culture, and we continue on a daily basis. Yesterday, we had an extensive meeting just on what we're doing to assist the Gulf and to assist Saudi Arabia in its COVID protocols.
Thank you, Jerry. Absolutely, we have been working very close with the Kingdom and with His Excellency, the Minister, of course, to this coordinated global approach, and has been really interesting to do that. Coming to what Manuel has said before about the financial crisis, he was like reminding now versus now, which is tourism. You have a lot of experience in crisis because you have been in this sector for many years. Can you let us know a little bit some of your former experience to compare, and how has been this different?
Yeah, it's I've been in tourism 54 years now, and I've operated pretty much all over the world. And I gave many speeches in March and April when the COVID started, saying, let's stay strong, let's stay united, we're going to get out of this. But this has been a very stubborn problem. I don't think any of us have seen anything like this. And it's going to take the rest of this year and probably most of 2022 to navigate out of this. The key thing now is that everybody's very united globally And what we have to do now is we just have to come up with, as the excellencies have said, a better system of intergovernmental cooperation, so we can get kind of a standard policy where people can travel without being hassled. The number one complaint around the world now, aside from the stubbornness of not taking the vaccinations, which is illogical to me, but the number one thing is that every city I go to, every country I go to, the protocols are all different. So when you listen to His Excellency lay out what the wonderful province of Andalusia has done and what our wonderful colleagues in Spain have done, that's a great example for all of us. We're following that example in the kingdom. We're getting ready now next month, October, to open up the World Expo in the United Arab Emirates with our brothers and sisters there. But we've seen nothing like this. I think the key thing is we got to be generous. We got to get everybody vaccinated. All the countries that have good financial means. It's not ethnocentric to the country. We got to pool resources to make sure the globe is vaccinated. And then we have to come up with a uniform system where people can travel, because I agree with the excellencies and my beloved colleagues that mobility is the key.
Thank you. And more than ever, thank you, Jerry, more than ever, as you are saying, and you are sharing with Manuel and as well with the audience here, is that we need to work together, but we need to share the best practice and we need to share our knowledge. We have to be united. There is no time to be divided now, it's to join forces. We have been doing a task force for like so many weeks already to be able to share this among the entire tourism ecosystem. Let's go now to another part of the world. We are going to be talking to Tetsunori Dambara, the group CEO from Miki Holding. Thank you, Miki. Thank you for joining us today. We know that Miki has been working as a European DMC business with Asian countries for over 50 years. And we wanted to know a couple of things. One is, first, when we are going to be able to travel and when we are going to be able to go to Japan first, and second, what is the general situation for companies and what happened with the government helping and supporting subsiding the companies there in Japan? Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon. Buenos dias, Maribel. Thank you for inviting me this conference. Actually, first to your question, when you can visit Japan, I believe that next April 2022, which you can enjoy Japan, very beautiful cherry blossom. And I would like to welcome you as soon as possible, because I'm, working for this industry for 50 years, and I'm managing private companies. Actually, we lost a business almost 18 months already. Actually, our annual turnover was about 700 million euro, but it's all disappeared now. And so we just maintain company, reducing cost, but it's really, we are facing difficult situation, not just our company, but our industry, private sector are, facing same problem. Actually, we are really want to open border as soon as possible. But actually, I believe that European country have a high ratio of vaccination. Also, Japan, we are planning to reach about 85% vaccinated people. Second vaccination has been done in end of November. Mm-hmm. And so I really wish to rethink future plan. Like, each country has own method or own regulation protocol, but it hasn't been coordinated yet, globally. If we handle travelers, like, a Japanese traveler goes to Europe, we need some agreement or coordination between these two countries. And so, for example, some European countries announced that vaccine passport is necessary to enter the restaurant or theater. In that case, if Japanese people travel this company, what we have to bring. And so I really want some initiative to coordinate making a global standard. And that's all the things of what I want to mention today. Thank you very much.
I think we can talk about destinations itself a little bit later. Let me then move to Madame Do. Very important leadership, Now we have been lacking this coordination, but as well, what about the leaders? Madame Do, talking about shortcomings and the bold moves paving the way forward, what global leaders did or didn't do during this unprecedented crisis, in your view?
Thank you, Maribel. Do you hear me?
Very well indeed.
You hear me? Okay, very good, because I'm so far away from you. And thank you, Maribel, for inviting me. And I would like to I'd like to start commenting of what Jordanian minister said of global initiative. We have to really think seriously, do we have global initiatives? In 2020 last year, and I believe in August, when WTTC issued letters and sent the letters, heads of states, as well as head of opposition party, I have that with me, and there was a very good start, and appealing to all global T20 countries. But see, it didn't go far. And I think it's about time that there's so little we can do, each of us. And like in case of Korea, we know we can travel to Spain, we know we can travel to United States, especially after completion of vaccination. But then when we come back to Korea, we'll be quarantined for 2 weeks. So, for instance, I'm always joking about Japanese case. I travel 2 hours from Seoul to Tokyo and go there in quarantine week. And I come back here, 2 hours flight, and I'm quarantined to 2 weeks. It doesn't matter whether you're positive or you're negative, you just quarantined. But under this, because we're scared, we don't know what we are getting into. We don't know COVID-19. So the global initiative is not smooth right now. It's because no one wants to take responsibility. If I talk this, my bureaucrats, ministry, and they all understand, yes, Ambassador Do, what you're saying is right. But who's going to put their neck to carry this in reality? Because if it doesn't work, then everybody will point out, okay, you suggest this initiative programs and it didn't work. So no one take a chance, not because they're a coward, but because just do not know what is coming. So I think under this circumstance, the only people who can take global initiative is the leaders of country. They are voted for 5 years for presidency. They are voted for 3 years for prime minister. They can take a stake. And we do need to get them and get work. Like we have a lot of things like vaccination. And what about countries who do not receive vaccination? Are we going to just vaccine and have a booster shot among ourselves? What about these people in Africa? This is a pandemic. It'll carry from one to another, And we saw how, Tokyo Olympic this time, we just experiencing something we never have experienced. Can you imagine you have Olympics with no audience? And then next year we're having another Winter Olympics in Beijing. What is it? No one can even imagine what is coming to us. Under this circumstance, we do need leadership of each heads of state and the heads of government. So in that way, I do compliment Saudi leadership, bringing people together. But please continue, raise these issues. not only with the UN, but among region, and we should have more regional group, but this one has to be headed by the head of states or the most important person of that country. Otherwise, there are too many risks. It's too much for ask minister take a chance. You know, the companies the tourism companies. So I do appreciate in the sense that we got together, we talk about, but really I will urge. Korea, we did all right at the very beginning. We tested good, we traced people, and we put them in hospital. We did very well at the very beginning of COVID. But then when numbers started to go up, there's no way we can keep up the system. And every morning, first thing in the morning when you turn news, what it is, today we just had 1,400 COVID positive. That's we wake up call.
Yes.
So, I just hope that people around us will have a more strong voice like WTTC or UNWTO or PATA and just to give you a simple example, what happened today. Yesterday, I saw news that Thailand is really opening up for foreign visitors. Today, no. The governor said no, and Prime Minister said yes, no. So they just went back to us. So we really need coordination among ourselves and among region, Korea, Japan, China, and Thailand. We need regional cooperation, and then we need a worldwide cooperation.
Thank you, Ambassador. Very passionate, but really, really very important, because it's actually what we need: cooperation, international cooperation, and the leaders they need to step up, need to be courageous enough, because that these decisions need to be taken. But it's why we vote them for, right? So it's very important. Thank you. Let's move now to another guest speaker, virtual, Stefan Hartman. We have been discussing today a little bit. We were discussing about the balance between, maintaining, the real countries, the domestic traveler, the communities. You have been doing a lot of research and studies in the new ideal governance model when it comes to destination stewardship. So can you let us know a little bit what are your views in that sense? Thanks.
Yes, of course. Thank you very much to be on this panel. Thank you for the invitation. Of course, many of us have been talking about building back better. And I think this is something that is really, really important because I think all of us work really hard to ensure that the industry recovers. And I think we all agree that it's not a question if the industry will recover, but it's more of the question when. And I'd like to take a futures perspective. I'm from the European Tourism Futures Institute, so that's basically what we do. And I try to look at what is going to be the kind of the governance challenge of the future. If we all start to travel, of course, again, and what does happen? And what I think is part of kind of the new governance debate in the future, it's about including the voices and absent voices, because I think the number of voices will increase dramatically as there are more stakeholders involved. Just thinking about travel and tourism, of course, I mean, we're moving from an economic focus just in terms of growth and income and jobs. And I think we have seen a focus in terms of negative effects, but I think we're moving towards a situation where we focus on kind of the positive contribution to communities and social goals like the SDGs or well-being. And I think if this is the case, and I think it is going to be the case more and more, then, of course, tourism is part of city making, of rural development, of regional development. And I think that's what we are going to talk about in the coming years. How is this industry going to contribute to local identities and sense of place? And this is something that goes beyond, I think, traditional models of thinking in terms of tourism as an economic activity. It's going to be a social activity. I think this is going to be really a kind of a rethinking process, but it comes with far-reaching effects for governance. And I think this is what I try to raise a bit of awareness about, because I think what do we see? I think the public sector stakeholders are really increasing activity. Of course, in the past, when it's about over-tourism, now it's about COVID, but I think in the future it's about how our communities going to benefit, and how do we enhance our place-based qualities? I mean, this is really a strategic issue, and I think have heard about contributions that are really going in that direction. And I think we should applaud that, but also we should not forget communities. And communities are no longer a silent voice. I think they are more actively and proactively involved. And also there we see leadership. I like to make a case for that. And I'd like to draw attention to the city of Amsterdam, where actually a local petition signed by 30,000 inhabitants made it to the city council. And they urged the city council to discuss tourism and over-tourism and the possibilities of the contribution of tourism. So actually community took initiative through a whole democratic process, and it led to something very unique, that the city adopted a ordinance, which is the closest thing to a local law, setting an upper limit for visitor numbers to prevent overshoot, and at the same time, lower limit to avoid shortfall. And this is really something new, I think, based on community involvement. And what I'd like to emphasize, for me, this is about feedback mechanisms between all of the different stakeholder groups. And I think this is going to be really important when we talk about new governance. And you need this to find this optimal balance between the private sector, public sector, and community. And I think this requires shared responsibility by all of us, because it's not a given. It's not a given at all, and it needs efforts. It needs efforts to build capacity, to build this organizational capacity, and thus leadership. And I think then we are all involved, because if we do this, there's a good future for the industry. There's a good future for the communities, but also a government that is able to manage all of these interests very well. There's much more to say about this. Also, it's discussed in length in a recent publication by the WTTC on destination stewardship. I was fortunate to contribute to this. I would like to draw a bit of attention to this topic, because I think this is going to be what we'll be discussing.
I'd like to ask you something, because, of course, we were talking about destination stewardship before COVID, and you were referring to it because, that was one of the big issues that destinations had before everything started. Yeah. What do you think now that the citizens and the communities are thinking about our industry, now that they have seen that there is no job, they lose opportunities, and how important our beautiful sector is, despite of that was like booming and growing a lot, and of course we needed to sustain that. But do you think that the perception has changed a bit now?
I think the perception is, we do a lot of studies also within communities, and actually the perception was not bad at all. But it's something I think COVID showed us how important it actually is. So I think this idea of shortfall and overshoot is something that's really important, because I think we've seen a huge shortfall. And of course, then you notice actually the impact and also the societal impact of tourism. That goes beyond economics. That feeds into all sorts of domains, policy domains, but also livelihoods of people. And this is something, of course, in a very unfortunate way, we've seen the impact and also the positive contribution. And at the same time, I think we should also be not fall back into discussions about over-tourism, because we have had this, and we, I think, are going to discuss those types of balance issues in the future more and more. The thing is, we need to get the organization in place at destination level, at local levels, at national levels, but also international levels, together. And this is a huge effort that all of stakeholders need to make. I mean, we're in this together, and if we do not do this well, at the worst, we might have negative impacts on communities or ecosystems, and you name it. And I think that's sooner or later people will object, start lawsuits, and you name it. And that's not something you actually, that's not something you want. It's not good for anybody.
Thank you. We have only a couple of minutes. I cannot believe we only went through a question with all the panelists. So interesting. But I have the very last question to all of us, and please be short. But can you give a recommendation to a leader on how we can, all together work and get out of this, and that this should be lasting for the future, of course? One recommendation, please, Minister.
Well, I agree. I think we always talk about leadership. And leadership comes in times of crisis. And I think, as the ambassador has indicated, today I think we all have leadership at different levels, but I think this has to be taken at the highest level where all of us have to be committed as governments, heads of states, come together and say it's time that we take all a stand in one to face the COVID, to be able to get out of it as soon as possible.
Thank you. Manuel, please.
Okay, very
Minister.
brief, very brief. For us, the strategy must follow 3 pillars, 3 points. First of all, diversification. Second point, implementation of technology using the culture of the data. And the third point, the third pillar, is the establishment of the ethics of sustainability and inclusivity vector of this industry. These 3 pillars must be our roadmap.
The recipe. Thank
Exactly.
you. Thank you. Jerry, please.
Well, I want to thank everybody, and I agree with Ambassador Doe and their excellencies. We have to continue to be united as we are as a community, all the tourism entities, all of us here today, but ultimately it lies with the heads of state. And all of us have got to go to them, say we're united as a tourism community, and now you have to step up and back it. There's no backing out. I mean, tourism is almost 11% of global GDP pre-COVID, one of the largest employees in the world. And Mr. President, Madam Prime Minister, time for you to step up.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Dambara, your opinion?
Yeah, I hope leadership taking more coordination, cross-border, country, ministry, industry. We need agreement and decision, and go take action. That's now we are really needed.
Thank you, Ambassador Do.
Well, leadership, leadership, leadership.
Exactly, and a woman,
what
and
I
a
want.
woman leader. Thank you very much. And yeah, please, Stefan, what is your view in this?
Yeah, I agree with the other panelists. I can only agree with them.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Which is clear, we need, of course, leadership, but we need a global framework, a global cooperation. What is that? It's a Uber organization, public, private. What is that? We don't know yet, but with this case, we have to go from the talking to the doing, no? So thank you very much, all of you. And thank you very much to Portugal, to Evora for organizing, and of course, to the French friends from Eventis and Jacobs Media. Thank you very much to all of you.